Hi everybody, this is Mr. Roche. We've been working on the Bouncy House. I kind of changed a lot of the CSS to make it look better. I'll show you what I got right now. There you go. What I do is I changed the background because I used to have kind of a big red background to it. And I found sort of sympathetic colors to go with this blue, which is like a kind of a form of sky blue. And I also set up things that make the buttons change when they turn, when you hover over them, or when you like click them or make them active. And so I wanted to show you how that was going to work. Okay, so let's see. So basically, what's going on is that we were kind of styling the buttons, and the buttons live in a div called menu bar, and the buttons are part of a class called menu item. And what I did over here was I went to menu bar and I did this kind of a thing. Okay. And what I was looking for was oh, also too, I wanted to show you that like with the gables, I have a gable like this. This is the one I used. But there are other gables now to use like this. There's this one, but I photoshopped it so it looked like kind of like this, which is nice. This is an original picture, but then I photoshopped this to make it look like this. This is an original picture, which got some crazy people below it, and I photoshopped them so that just the top of the house would show up, or just the bottom of the house would show up, and you can use either, and you can have your bouncy house below it here. There's one more that looks like this, and it's a big house, right? And I photoshopped it so that just the top of the house is there, and you can find these here on the Canvas site. They look like this, and these are the gable photos here, and these are the ones that are cropped, and these are the original images, and you can just kind of download the ones that you want and use them. And that's what I'm doing, basically through the CSS up here, where you set a background image and you pick the image that you want, like this. I'm picking Gable 1. Okay. And we did some stuff from out last time where there was sort of no repeat, no cover, stuff like that. And that makes it look like this. If it shows up. Oh, sorry, it's down here. And that's cool. But what we really were working on is this, okay? So what I did here was we have a menu bar, okay? And the menu bar is a big div that goes all the way across the width of the page, right? So the menu bar actually goes, let me see, sorry. It goes all the way from here to here. And inside here, there are little buttons, okay? And let me do this 1 second so you can kind of see what I did here. The buttons are part of a class called menu item. And I'm going to turn off this. I'll explain what this is in a second. But if I turn this off, this attribute outlines, what it will do is it'll show you where the buttons are in the bouncy house. So if I go like this, you can see that the menu bar, the button goes around here like this. And what I didn't want to have happen was every time I click it, I don't like that blue line. So I just wanted to like be clicked, like what I was doing. And the way to do that is with an attribute called outline. And I'm going to go like this and say none. And but basically what I did was I made the width of the menu bar 100%. I made it the height. I actually gave it a certain size, even though that's sort of like basically it's based on this font size that you're using for the menu item. Okay. I turned margin and padding off for it. And then what I actually did was I added some padding here. Like I added a small percentage to the top, a small percentage to the bottom, and then I actually pushed both of these button items over by 15%. And that sort of makes sense because if you add 35 and 35, you get 70, and then the 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 remainder 30% can get split 15-15. And so that makes a good kind of look to what's going on. And basically the words are basically centered, right? And that looks good. I like the light blue coloring. I'm gonna think about trying to get into like a kind of a gradient and maybe try to put clouds or something behind these. But I like what's going on right now. This feels good with like this color, feels good with this blue, and the red pops up and stuff like that. And so I like what I've done color wise. But what I did do was I figured out the some kind of value for sky blue. Okay, and what I do is I used online color sort of picking sites to check this color. And what I basically did was I went like this. I just Googled what colors go with this color. And what happens is this shows up, color hexa. And what's cool is that there's my sky blue. But what it shows you is colors that sort of go with it. See this? So I actually picked this as one of the greens. I picked this as one of the oranges. I'm thinking about trying to make a gradient for the sky because skies get kind of bluer as you go up to the top of it. But I'm not quite there yet. But these sites are really, really helpful because they help you find sort of simpatico colors, which is important, right? Like this is kind of a nice, these are nice sort of, like I would never be able to figure out this color, but this site sort of gives me them and helps me kind of with them and stuff like that. So I think that's good. So what I do is I pick stuff that sort of work with that. And I happen to know that orange is a complement of blue. And if I'm using this sort of heavy blue, I can use this orange, stuff like that. That's sort of what I was doing. And what I'm trying to do is find like a nice fit for all this stuff. So, so that's kind of what's going on. But but basically where all the styling happens is menu bar. Menu bar becomes 100%. I gave it a 30% width. Margin and padding becomes 0. But I put a little bit of padding top and a little bit of padding bottom on it. And then, like I said, if I'm making the width of the buttons 35%, then there's 35 plus 35 makes 70. So the remainder then is 30, and if you split that, it's 15%. And what I did was I picked the yellow-orange background that I found online. I tried some other backgrounds, but this looked better. And that gets me to the menu item, which is the button. Okay, so what I did was I picked a font for it. Okay, I picked a font size. And this is a little bit tricky because the font size 115 EM like has to do with the height. And I don't know if this is the best coding here, but because you want to have the EMs matching like to some percentage, but I just didn't get it done. So, but what I did do is I set the background color of the button to be the same as the menu bar, so it's not gonna like be different, right? And then I picked this is a simpatico kind of purple color that goes with this orange. And I have to make the menu items float left. I gave it a width of 35%. I cut off all of their margins, paddings, and borders. Okay. And what I also did down here is I used this one attribute called outline and set it to none. I had to look it up to do it. Okay, but what it gets you is a kind of a button. And a modern button doesn't like kind of do a lot, like when you see it. Okay, let's see what it's. It does when it shows up. Okay, so what I wanted to do is when I hover on it, I want it to be responsive, right? And when I click it, I want you to know that I've clicked it. But what I didn't want is I didn't want a big blue rectangle to show up. And that's what's sort of cool right now. Okay, same kind of thing here, right? And if I click over here, I'm okay. And if I click over here, I'm okay. Which is sort of cool. But I don't sort of show that to people, okay? So what I did, though, is to get the menu item to do stuff, okay? I set an initial color to this kind of purpley color, right? It did a float left so they all line up with each other. I give them a width, right? And then I made everything else be 0. And I forced them to be in the center of their DOM box, basically, is what's going on there. And the big important thing I learned in this episode was to make the outline be none, so that it wouldn't show up when you clicked it. Nothing shows up when you click, which is cool. And then there are these extra selectors that you can kind of pick. And I picked a hover, and I made that color red. I might change that, but that's what I got right now. I want the link to be when it's unvisited. I want to make sure that it's the same as the one I have up here. Okay, so it's the same color of text. But when I visit it also, I don't want it to change color. Like, I don't know if I can do this. Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to turn this off right now. And what happens is if you run this, if you run it and click it, like what will happen is sometimes the text color will change and stuff like that. So just to make sure, I'm going to turn this back to the original color. Okay. And then what I want is when you're clicking on it, at the time you're clicking on it, I want to change color a little bit. So I change that to purple. Okay. But these things work like this. This is the class name. And then there's this extra selector that you can say, like, basically on hover, or on link, like the basic link tag, or on visited, or on active, which is what I like. Okay. So anyway, that's what I got going on with that. Okay. And then what I did was I put a big orange border around my canvas, which is where the dots are going to be. Okay. And when you get to here, everything should look pretty good. Okay. And what we're going to do now is we're going to make some videos to do the JavaScript to have the dot color show up. Okay. And that's what's going on.